roars that echo across the savanna, birds soaring through the sky, and felines struggling to maintain their domain. This is wildlife at its finest. The hyenas get rowdy, the meerkats hide, and the deer run. The wind ruffles the mane of the desert king in the middle of the plain. The scorching sun turns the sand into flames, and by night, the cold reaches the bones. Only the fittest will survive. In this inhospitable place, every day, the wildlife writes a new story. This is the Kalahari Desert, a kingdom of sand in southern Africa. The Kalahari corresponds to a region of more than 930,000 square kilometers between the borders of Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa. Covering almost 1 million square kilometers, the Kalahari is 4 times larger than the United Kingdom. In the local native languages, Kalahari means place without water, so it's easy to guess what the terrain and climate are like in this corner of the world. During the summer days, the sun beats down on the vastness of the Kalahari, raising temperatures to up to 46 degrees Celsius, creating almost a hell on Earth, where water, more than a vital resource, is a privilege. Although the Kalahari is globally known as a completely desert-like and barren region, there are 2 issues. The first is that, in fact, it is a semi-desert because, despite having scarce rainfall, places like the Sahara or the Atacama are drier. These limited annual rains, which mainly come as thunderstorms in the summer, by no means imply more surface water availability, because as soon as this vital liquid falls from the sky, it's absorbed by the endless sands. The second issue with the belief in a desertic and desolate Kalahari is that, against all odds, it's home to one of the richest and most fascinating faunas on the planet. This plain is the habitat of more than 400 species of birds, 92 species of reptiles, 31 species of amphibians, and 85 different species of mammals. From tiny whistling rats, through fierce birds of prey, to colossal felines, wildlife appears in an infinite variety of creatures in this challenging subtropical region, each and every one fighting its personal battle for survival. But the animal kingdom is not the only one facing the odds of life in this sandy savanna. Plant life also manages to be part of this surprisingly rich ecosystem. Native Kalahari vegetation includes acacias, camel thorns, shepherd's trees, and various types of grasses and herbs. Mother Nature, the creator, or whoever was the architect of the monumental Kalahari, has shown a bit of mercy, and in the midst of the dry plain, there is a mighty watercourse, the Okavango River. It flows directly into the desert and is a relatively constant source of water. There are also some seasonal wetlands that, during the short rainy season, which lasts no more than 4 months, attract many thirsty Kalahari wildlife residents. These wetlands are a gift of living water for species that have gone long periods with nothing more than the memory of this vital liquid. But nature is not so generous in the Kalahari. Just as many species come in search of a revitalizing drink, others attend with a more main course mindset for dinner. Among those predators lurking, seeing the wetlands as the perfect trap for their prey, is none other than the fastest land animal on the planet. A wild feline capable of running up to 110 kilometers per hour across the plains, the cheetah. With a body less robust than other big cats, and short fur making it more aerodynamic, of a yellow color covered with thousands of black spots to camouflage among the grasses, the cheetah is the perfect predator in a place like the Kalahari. Despite being endowed by evolution with unparalleled physical abilities, the cheetah proves to be much more than just a wild beast when hunting. In a region of the planet where resources are limited, such as the Kalahari, it's important not to waste energy chasing prey all over the place, so this feline carefully plans each attack. The very scarce wetlands scattered in the dry Kalahari plain are ideal places to find a good portion of meat to keep this feline of up to 75 kilograms well nourished. Desperate with thirst, gazelles, cheetah's favorite prey, forget for a second their precarious position in the food chain, and with its keen sense of sight, they have fallen into the cheetah's sights. The feline's hunting strategy is simple yet effective. As a good sprinter, the cheetah is not used to running very long distances. In fact, the distances it usually covers to chase prey do not exceed 200 meters. That is why it is necessary to plan well when to use that burst of speed. The cheetah will always try to approach its prey as stealthily as possible, about 60 or 70 meters away. Semi-crouched, with its head below its shoulders, the cheetah tries to use the vegetation to remain hidden. Seeing the opportunity, the feline initiates a colossal sprint, accelerating from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3 seconds, directly toward its prey, which flees in terror to avoid becoming part of the menu of this imposing Kalahari predator. The chases usually last no more than a minute and end when the cheetah sweeps its foot under its prey, which falls at high speed, often breaking limbs. This cheetah attack differs from that of other big cats because, having a lighter build, they are not able to knock down their targets with a single bite. Unfortunately for these felines, but fortunately for most herbivore species in the Kalahari, the cheetah's success rate in hunting barely exceeds 40%, making them fairly inefficient. When a chase lasts more than a minute, running at such high speeds causes the cheetah to accumulate excess body heat, reaching a temperature of up to 41 degrees Celsius. In the Kalahari, not exactly one of the coolest places on the planet, a failed hunt ending with excessive heat can be overwhelming. In addition to having to bring food to the table, on a routine day in the vastness of the Kalahari, cheetahs spend time defending their territories from invaders of their own species. While it is true that occasionally males form coalitions to establish large territories under their dominion, the vast majority of Kalahari cheetahs live solitary lives and will react anything but friendly if another feline tries to take what belongs to them, although these quarrels rarely end with significant injuries or the death of a cheetah. The cheetah is one of those species that breaks the silence of the endless Kalahari plain with its extensive repertoire of sounds. This feline basically has a vocalization for every situation. For example, it emits a chirp similar to that of some birds when it's excited, or coughs and growls when anxious about having to fight a predator. Of course, the cheetah's favorite sounds are the purrs and howls it makes before mating with a fertile female. For 3 days, the felines won't waste time and will mate up to 5 times a day with the goal of bringing new cubs into the Kalahari, which will have to face all the wildlife challenges their parents have overcome. While cheetahs enjoy mating season, in the green areas of the Kalahari Desert, another species is also having a good time but feasting on nutritious grass. The blue wildebeest. Measuring up to 215 centimeters in length and weighing more than 150 kilograms, the wildebeest is an example that Kalahari wildlife manifests in different forms. While the cheetah prefers to live its days alone, wandering the plains, the wildebeest is a gregarious animal that feels comfortable in company. Wildebeests often form groups ranging from a dozen to hundreds of individuals. Even though their impressive horns and heavy build make them appear bovine, wildebeests are actually related to antelopes. Contrary to what is typical in most horned species, female wildebeests also have horns. Nevertheless, they haven't achieved complete equality with males, since while males' horns can reach up to 80 centimeters, females are often up to 40 centimeters long. Hearing about a horned beast of up to 200 kilograms living in one of the most inhospitable places on the planet, one might think the wildebeest is an aggressive animal that constantly gets into conflict. But the truth is that this Kalahari resident is quite peaceful. When you don't have a very open disposition for confrontations, but live in a place as wild as the Kalahari Desert, you must take measures if you don't want to become someone's dinner. Being such an appetizing prey like the wildebeest, a target for countless predators, they choose always to stay in groups of several individuals. For wildebeests, there is strength in numbers. Upon detecting that one member of the group is in a predator's sights, wildebeests usually move quickly, organizing in a radial structure and placing the weaker individuals in the center for protection. The wildebeest's favorite weapon as a deterrent against predators could be none other than its intimidating pair of sharp horns. Also, a useful resource for those moments when a lion or cheetah wants to turn a group member into dinner is to use their large hooves to deliver powerful kicks. Just imagining a wildebeest's kick heading toward their heads makes the Kalahari's top predators think twice before messing with the formidable adult males, so they prefer to attack the sick or younger ones that are not yet in sync with the group. To perfect their defenses against predators, wildebeests often surround themselves with zebras as their personal sentinels. When a predator like the voracious cheetah approaches a herd that includes wildebeests and zebras, these striped animals usually sound the alarm so that all potential prey can run off. With so many targets moving and the danger of being gored or kicked, many times the group escapes unscathed and can continue with its peaceful routine on the Kalahari Plain. After escaping hungry predators, wildebeests must eat well to stay strong. When a place as hostile as the Kalahari provides food, you'd better take advantage, because you never know how long it might last. The wildebeest's diet consists mainly of grasses and leaves from shrubs and trees. While feeding, grazing with zebras also benefits them because zebras usually eat less nutritious grasses, leaving the wildebeest with the best available herbs. Thus, besides being good lookouts, zebras fulfill an important gardener role for wildebeests. When the merciless Kalahari sun finally sets, wildebeests cannot commit the sin of believing their day in the wild plain has ended. Many predators would see a half-asleep wildebeest as a succulent nighttime snack. Wildebeests know this well and have already taken measures. The groups designate some individuals to stand guard around the perimeter while the others rest. If all goes well, the herd will be complete for when the Kalahari gifts a new sunrise. Very often, in their hectic days on the Kalahari Plains, zebras are not the only companions of wildebeests. From above, the African white-backed vulture usually watches these groups intently, even following them for entire days, just waiting for one to succumb to the harsh living conditions, or for a predator to do the dirty work for it. The white-backed vulture is an imposing inhabitant of the Kalahari skies that, as its name suggests, has a whitish back that stands out against a darker plumage. It can weigh up to 7 kilograms and measure 225 centimeters in wingspan. With such impressive proportions, it's easy to think that this vulture is an innate hunter and the nightmare of hundreds of birds and mammals. However, the white-backed vulture prefers to make the least effort to feed, dedicating itself to taking advantage of others' work with a 100% scavenging behavior. Since wildebeests face countless threats even on their calmest days in the Kalahari, for the white-backed vulture, following these antelopes is a guaranteed meal. When they finally get their wish and prey has crossed into the underworld, flocks of vultures land beside the carcass, and with the help of their sharp beaks and useful claws, the birds begin the feast. Although vultures would like to leave nothing but bones of their prey, since the Kalahari conditions demand making the most of these gifts of wildlife, their beaks aren't fully adapted to tear through tough tissues, so they must settle for eating only soft parts, such as the nutritious viscera. While wildebeests are a fairly sustainable food source for vultures, when the herds spend days without victims, vultures have no problem searching elsewhere on the plain for something else to satisfy their appetite. In this expansion of their menu, goats, warthogs, gazelles, ostriches, and practically anything that perishes and has meat in the Kalahari come into play. Just like wildebeests, the white-backed vulture also firmly believes that there is strength in numbers. Indeed, when you're a bird with a voracious appetite in the middle of a vast semi-desert with scarce prey, you need to work as a team if you don't want to face hardships. Vultures are considered social birds, helping their fellow species members in the task of spotting potential prey. When a member of the flock locates a food source, it will fly in circles over it as a signal to the rest of the hungry birds. This teamwork ensures that white-backed vultures are almost always the first scavengers to arrive at carcasses, guaranteeing them the best meal. Their efficient work as professional scavengers has given white-backed vultures a somewhat unpleasant reputation in Kalahari territory, as their presence around herds often indicates the proximity of death. However, the ecosystem should be a bit more grateful to these misunderstood vultures. Whether they intend to or not, By quickly taking care of animal carcasses, vultures prevent their decomposition and the spread of bacteria into the environment. For a hungry flock of white-backed vultures, a 50-kilogram prey represents a meal they'll devour in just about 3 minutes. Likewise, their speed in arriving at crime scenes in the animal world and taking care of almost everything avoids what could be bloody clashes among other scavengers. When hyenas and jackals join the feast, generally, only the memory remains of what was once a fantastic banquet, so there is no prey to become the apple of discord. After a hearty meal, white-backed vultures relax a bit by perching on the branches of the isolated Kalahari trees. And, as if mocking the rest of the animals that didn't get to join the feast, they open their outstretched wings toward the sun. While white-backed vultures work together from the skies to ensure bread on the table, some small mammals do the same but underground. In the arid savanna of the Kalahari, right where one would think wildlife has no chance to prevail, meerkats have established a more than impressive complex of burrows. If we were to list the fiercest and most aggressive animals in the Kalahari Desert, one thing is sure: meerkats would not be on it. Weighing an average of 700 grams and standing no more than 35 centimeters tall, nature did not give meerkats the option of being violent warlords of the plains. Instead, they have opted for a highly structured social organization in which each meerkat has a role, and they manage to survive in their small corner of the desert. Even though evolution wasn't generous enough to give the meerkat a large and fearsome size or a powerful bite, it did grant it a highly useful tool for a place like the Kalahari: its sharp claws. Of course, the damage a small meerkat with claws no longer than 5 centimeters can do is limited. Their true use lies in construction. If white-backed vultures are the Kalahari's professional cleaners, meerkats are its star contractors. The meerkat's claws are perfect for digging into the endless sand of the prairie, shaping a safe home for the entire clan. With violence not being an option to protect themselves from the countless predators that inhabit the Kalahari, meerkats have created a highly elaborate security system. Every day, when the meerkats leave their safe burrow, they designate a sentinel who must find an elevated hill to do its job. This sentinel has the very important task of alerting the rest of the clan to any predators. With a characteristic bark, the red code is activated, indicating all members of the group must seek shelter. Especially when hawks and eagles soar overhead, the urgency to return to the burrow becomes desperate to avoid becoming a snack for these intruders. But we're in the biodiverse Kalahari, which means dangers don't just come from the sky. Some small predators, such as jackals, can set their sights on these social mammals. Sometimes, when the sentinel fails in its task of warning the clan about an intruder, things spiral, and desperate situations require desperate measures. In an attempt to deter predators, meerkats assume a particular posture, arching their backs, lowering their heads, and fluffing their tails and fur to appear larger. Although seeing just one individual like this may not be scary at all, when several meerkats take this stance, they can sometimes make predators turn around and leave the way they came. Having dealt with the danger of becoming someone else's meal, the meerkat focuses on feeding itself. Although meerkats may look like classic herbivores, the truth is that, in a sort of joke of nature, these tiny mongooses are carnivorous. Meerkats feed primarily on insects, which can make up to 80% of their diet. The same claws they use to build their enviable condominium are also perfect for looking for food among the vegetation. Caterpillars, spiders, and scorpions make excellent appetizers found not too far from their burrow. On days when the Kalahari is more generous, they may even eat birds, eggs, small mammals, and reptiles. Adaptation most defines the survival of meerkats in such an inhospitable place as the Kalahari. Living in a site where sand is even more abundant than water, meerkats are the envy of many species because they do not need to drink this precious liquid to survive. The moisture contained in the insects and caterpillars they eat is more than enough to keep them hydrated, even in the scorching heat. Unlike meerkats, other species cannot even consider their existence deep in the arid desert without water, as it is synonymous with life for them. An example of these animals, though it doesn't precisely hydrate to maintain clean, soft skin, is the warthog. Having a large head, a barrel-shaped body, and a face full of what appear to be warts means the warthog is not exactly the most handsome species in the Kalahari. But that's no obstacle to surviving there. What the meerkats have in the form of claws, nature has given the warthog in the form of two pairs of large tusks on the sides of its snout. The warthog uses these powerful weapons in the middle of its face to dig and defend itself when an intruder dares to enter its part of the Kalahari Plains. What we commonly call warts on a warthog's face are actually thick folds of skin that protect it during fights with those species that dare take it on. The few seasonal wetlands in the Kalahari are a blessing for the warthog, as it can cool off after a long, hot day of foraging. Like pigs, these warthogs know that hygiene is an important part of their personal presentation, so they often bathe in the mud at these coveted watering holes, protecting themselves from parasites and insects. However, representing between 50 and 100 kilograms of juicy meat in a place as wild as the Kalahari Desert and rolling around in a mud pit is not exactly a wise idea if you want to survive. The warthog is targeted by many of the large predators of the plain and must always watch its back. In the Kalahari, cheetahs, lions, hyenas, and jackals are always hovering around the warthog, seeing it as a succulent cut of meat. Nevertheless, taking a bite out of this wild animal is not easy, because despite its unathletic appearance, it can run up to 80 kilometers per hour. While other wetland goers in the Kalahari use their sight to spot potential predators, the warthog relies on its advanced sense of smell, which also helps it find food. But the two long tusks of up to 20 centimeters that warthogs have are not just for show. When the situation calls for it, and a predator approaches closer than recommended, it won't hesitate to try to gore it, dealing a blow that knocks it out of action. In particular, females of the species may rely heavily on this strategy when their offspring are threatened by hungry felines. When the warthog isn't taking a refreshing bath in some wetland or running for its life with a large predator behind, it takes a moment of relaxation in a comfortable burrow, protected from the sun, and taking a break from the hectic wildlife of the Kalahari. Although warthogs are excellent diggers, perhaps on the same level as meerkats, when it comes to building a home, they prefer others do the hard work. Warthogs often invade burrows abandoned by other species, thus saving energy on construction. Of course, they always enter a burrow backward, to be ready to exit if necessary. The warthog's stomach is also ready to eat practically anything the Kalahari brings to the table. This species truly lives up to what it means to be omnivorous, as it feeds on grasses, berries, fruits, fungi, eggs, animal carcasses, and even small mammals. Except during mating season, warthogs can live peacefully in groups, where several adults gather to rest and protect themselves from predators. Just as meerkats have a specific call to warn the rest of the clan of danger, warthogs living in a group have adopted a similar system. The signal to flee is to see one of their own running while raising its peculiar tail, ending in a tuft of hair. At this point, it's best not to think twice and take off quickly. Just as the Kalahari ecosystem is home to the not-so-handsome warthog, other species have been more fortunate in their appearance. One of them is a bird with long legs, a slender neck, and perhaps the most beautiful plumage in the world, the majestic ostrich. Weighing up to 180 kilograms and reaching up to 3 meters in height, the ostrich is the world's largest bird. Walking through the Kalahari Plain, the ostrich is the personification of animal beauty in this harsh corner of the world. However, not everything can be perfect for the ostrich, as it's impossible to be born with enviable plumage, colossal size, and also be the master of the skies. The ostrich is one of those peculiar flightless birds nature grants us. The main reason is that its wings are too small compared to its huge size, making it impossible for them to take off and see the vastness of the Kalahari from above. With the frustrated dream of flying, the ostrich has the not-so-shabby consolation prize of being able to run at very high speeds across the plain. Its small wings are perfect for propulsion, and its powerful legs allow a sprinter's stride, reaching speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour. Though being able to spread its wings and leave the ground would be an excellent escape route from the many predators of the Kalahari, even without the ability to fly, the ostrich has its tricks when a fool believes they can devour the world's largest bird. When lions, cheetahs, wild dogs, or hyenas try to make the ostrich part of their diet, this imposing bird doesn't hesitate to attack using its long legs. With a force of up to 150 kilograms per square centimeter, one of these kicks can even kill a lion. In case they're not lucky enough to land this lethal blow, ostriches also have deadly claws of up to 10 centimeters on one of their toes. With these, they can also defend themselves from the attacks of the countless Kalahari predators. But if conditions are too unfavorable for a fight, and they're not suited to do battle, an almost infinite plain is available for running, and a sprint of up to 30 minutes at high speed leaves even the fastest animal on Earth far behind. Escaping ferocious predators makes the ostrich reflect on life and think, why not have offspring? Once mating season begins, mature males over 3 years old seek young, fertile females, usually younger than themselves. High testosterone levels in males cause their necks and beaks to turn red, and they become very territorial. No male wants an outsider coming to mess with his females. After an elaborate courtship in which the male crouches on his legs and flaps his wings from side to side, while his head and neck sway, the female shows receptivity by flapping her wings and lowering her head. After a dance lasting up to 10 minutes, mating commences, with the male mounting the female. Despite showing off his courtship dance, for the male ostrich, that didn't mean anything in terms of loyalty, as fidelity is not a word he knows. In the same breeding season, a male may mount up to 5 females. Of course, just because he decided to mate with other ostriches doesn't mean his first partner doesn't hold a special place in his heart, as she will be the primary female who has the honor of laying her eggs first in the nest built on the plain, a not very elaborate depression in the ground. Being the world's largest bird, it's easy to imagine its eggs won't be particularly small. In fact, they are the largest eggs in nature, weighing up to 2 kilograms, equivalent to about 24 chicken eggs. Only if the primary female agrees will the secondary females be allowed to lay their eggs in the same nest. The male ostrich likes to keep his infidelities close. Once the secondary females have finished laying, the nest usually contains between 30 and 40 eggs. Now, the male and the primary female will have to incubate the eggs for about 40 days. At the end of this period, if the parents have done their job responsibly, dozens of chicks will hatch from these gigantic eggs, needing care from their father and, for some, their stepmother. These chicks will have much to learn to become independent adults. In the Kalahari, there are countless predators that make each day a struggle for survival. But undoubtedly, the wildest of all is the king of the jungle, or in this case, the king of the desert, the lion. Accustomed to living in the savanna, not even the hostile Kalahari can break the wild spirit of this imposing feline. Weighing up to 190 kilograms, the lion is the second largest cat on Earth, behind only the tiger. The thick mane of this wild monarch reminds us we're in the presence of none other than the desert's royalty. In the particular case of Kalahari lions, their manes have a darker coloration, which is a sign of health and high testosterone levels. But being king of the Kalahari often doesn't come with any special perks. Survival for lions in this arid corner of Africa also presents important daily challenges. And to cope with these, there's nothing like a pride working as a team. Although the visible face of the pride is almost always an imposing alpha male with a mane blowing in the wind, gazing at the horizon, the truth is that lions are organized in a matriarchal society. In these societies, females come from generations of the same lineage, while males are easily replaced by others. Tasks are well distributed among pride members. The male must ensure everyone's safety, guarding against invasions by other male lions. Meanwhile, the females are responsible for putting food on the table and caring for now, tender future kings of the Kalahari. Living in a group full of lethal predators allows lions to rest peacefully, even in a place as wild as the Kalahari. These felines rest up to 20 hours a day. During the prolonged Kalahari dusk, when the sun begins to set, giving way to a starry sky, lions are at their most active. When a hungry pride decides to go hunting, the best thing for all other Kalahari species to do is run, because there's nowhere to hide. Practically anything moving across the plain can become prey, from warthogs, zebras, wildebeests, even to the tall giraffes. Because they're not as fast as their cheetah relatives, lionesses must get even closer to their prey. Typically, about 30 meters from their target is enough for an effective ambush. Lionesses are like field marshals when it comes to devising a strategy for a successful hunt. Often, the plan is to surround the herds and pick the weakest member to attack from multiple flanks. With up to 4 or 5 lionesses emerging from the grasses, prey's attempts at survival are usually futile, and they end up dying from asphyxiation with a feline of over 100 kilograms strangling them. In the case of smaller prey, not even that much planning and effort from the pride is necessary, as often a single swipe of a paw is enough to dispatch the prey. But when there's a whole pride to feed, with adults devouring up to 7 kilograms of meat per day, of course the more substantial prey, like wildebeests, are the main target. When the hunt is successful, the pride respects the hierarchy, allowing the alpha male to eat first. Then it's the turn of the females who did the hard work, and finally the young cubs, who must settle for the leftovers. However, what is a pleasant dinner for the pride can be interrupted by a kind of desperate grin that drives the desert kings crazy. The hyenas have caught the delicious scent of fresh meat and want a piece of the lion's feast. In an interspecies struggle that's as old as wildlife itself, battles between these scavengers and the majestic felines ensure the Kalahari will never be at peace. If life for top predators like lions and cheetahs is tough, it's even more so for the species they constantly target. At any second, what looked like just grassland can turn into a wild feline, with claws charging straight at your throat. With all the tension this implies, springboks find a way to survive in this demanding desert, where nature has placed a target on them for numerous predators. But the springbok is much more than just prey. This magnificent medium-sized mammal is the embodiment of the will to survive, reflected in an animal species. With brown and white fur and a pair of imposing horns up to 35 centimeters in both sexes, the springbok leaves complaints for another day and roams the Kalahari savanna in groups of up to 100 individuals. The springbok's diet consists mainly of grasses and succulent plants found in the green areas of the Kalahari. They can also browse on good shrubs when available. Although finding a watering hole in the midst of the dry savanna is practically a miracle for most Kalahari inhabitants, these horned creatures have no problem going long periods without drinking water, as they get just the hydration they need from their diet. In specific cases, some individuals spend their entire lives without knowing what, for them, is not such a vital liquid. As a reward for being part of the diet of 2 of the planet's top predators, the springbok has been gifted with incredible physical abilities to help it escape. Living up to its name, these gazelles can leap up to 4 meters in pronking jumps that lift all 4 legs off the ground. This is not only a way to get farther from its hunter, but also a deterrent method used by springboks to show how agile they are and why it's not a good idea to chase them. It's no coincidence that many times springboks manage to escape even the fastest predator on Earth. These gazelles aren't that far behind when it comes to speed, as they can reach up to 88 kilometers per hour while running through the savanna. Besides relying on their physical prowess, springboks carefully plan their every movement in the Kalahari savanna. The fact that they usually only roam areas with very sparse vegetation is no coincidence at all. Springboks know well that tall grasses are the perfect hiding place for both lions and cheetahs. Their sharp senses also keep them from falling into the jaws of an untamed feline. At the slightest suspicious sound, the springboks lift their heads and point directly to where, perhaps, a voracious predator lies hidden. The unforgiving Kalahari heat is another enemy the springboks must face. To handle it, they adjust their most active hours depending on the weather. If it's very hot, they prefer to remain resting under a lush tree, enjoying the shade and venturing out only at dawn or dusk to forage. When breeding season arrives, male springboks become real Casanovas, mating with as many females as they can. Of course, the combination of fertile females emitting pheromones and hormone-driven males is the perfect recipe for chaos. Fights between males are guaranteed, using their long horns to prove who's in charge. To mark their territories in the Kalahari, male springboks, besides urinating, a fairly well-known technique in the animal kingdom, create piles of feces as a sign that you're entering their property. These peculiar danger signs are often effective at keeping the competition for reproduction away. Just as springboks show that it's possible to achieve the feat of escaping animals as ferocious as the Desert King, there is another species in the Kalahari that, against all odds, directly challenges lions and lives to tell the tale. It is currently considered the bravest animal in the world, the honey badger. The honey badger shows that you don't need to weigh over 100 kilograms and have an imposing presence to be a fierce and dominant species in the Kalahari. At barely 85 centimeters tall and an average weight of 14 kilograms in males, the honey badger, also known as the ratel, bases its survival on hard work and, of course, courage. Perhaps because of its small size and somewhat discreet appearance, with gray and black fur covering its entire body, predators like lions and cheetahs believe they can go after the honey badger without consequence. After all, what could go wrong if you attack a prey that's nearly 10 times smaller than you? But what the honey badger lacks in size, it makes up for in attitude and ferocity. There have been many instances of this mammal taking on entire lion prides by itself and avoiding becoming an easy meal. The key to the honey badger's survival in a face-to-face fight with the Kalahari King lies just beneath its fur, a thick hide. Lions are used to dispatching small prey with a simple paw strike. But the honey badger's natural armor and great mobility do not make it easy. Usually, after some chasing, lions realize that trying to hunt a nimble animal with large claws that can cause severe infection-prone wounds is not a good idea. All this, plus the fact that hunting it yields barely a 14-kilogram meal, makes the honey badger an unprofitable target for predators. To understand the honey badger's achievement in defeating the Desert Kings, note that this mammal's height is less than the length of the horns of the impressive gemsbok, oryx. These antelopes are also inhabitants of the Kalahari Plain, who must cope with the harsh living conditions of this far from welcoming corner of the world. The oryx's appearance is one of the most striking among Kalahari wildlife species, with a coat featuring shades of brown and light gray, and white and black on its legs and face. However, the oryx's most remarkable trait is its spectacular horns, averaging up to 85 centimeters in a perfectly straight shape. The daily routine of oryx in the wild Kalahari involves roaming the plains in groups of up to 40 members, searching for grasses, thorny shrubs, roots and tubers. Although their water needs are limited, requiring only 3 liters per 100 kilograms of body weight per day, if the oryx comes across sama melons or cucumbers in the desert, it won't hesitate to eat them to supplement its hydration. Weighing up to 250 kilograms and possessing a more passive disposition than the aggressive honey badger, the oryx often becomes a target for large predators. However, we shouldn't be fooled by its generally placid nature. When an oryx feels threatened, it doesn't hesitate to use its long and potentially dangerous horns to defend itself. Moving its head from side to side, it turns its horns into sharp swords capable of seriously injuring pursuers. And when the time comes, and an escape route is available, they live up to being an antelope species by using their speed to disappear into the savanna. After this jolt of adrenaline, the oryx return to their, let's say, quiet routine in the Kalahari, searching for food. An interesting fact about these horned creatures is that when food sources start to run low on the surface, they have no problem digging up to a meter deep in the sand. With luck, some roots and tubers are treasures not to be despised in times of famine. But it's not only terrestrial animal species that dig around the plains in hopes of finding something to quell hunger on the toughest days in the Kalahari. Some birds, like the massive southern yellow-billed hornbill, also decide to leave the comfort of the trees to carefully inspect the vegetation, trying to get something to eat. Practically anything the southern yellow-billed hornbill finds on the ground in the Kalahari is a good option during lean days, from scorpions and caterpillars to grasshoppers or even termites. When you see the southern yellow-billed hornbill, whether walking across the plain or flying among the branches, it's impossible to ignore its impressive beak. It can measure up to 1/6 the length of its body, which is usually around 9 centimeters. Its bright yellow coloration and downward curvature contrast perfectly with its gray plumage with stripes and spots. The southern yellow-billed hornbill's beak is essentially an all-in-one tool for this bird. When feeding, it holds food between the two tips of its beak and drops it into its throat. A series of internal cutting edges also help shred food, making it easier to digest. However, having such a prominent beak does not only bring benefits to the southern yellow-billed hornbill. Though highly useful when gathering food and shredding it, it can obstruct the bird's vision, occasionally becoming a survival hazard. Besides earning its daily bread by foraging on its own, the southern yellow-billed hornbill has a rather unusual way of securing a few extra insects without much effort. Simply by heading to the neighborhood where dwarf mongoose burrows are located and waiting patiently. These small mammals will lay out a buffet of beetles or perhaps a tasty scorpion for the hornbill. Of course, nothing in this life is free, so the hornbill must pay for the dwarf mongoose's kindness by offering its services as a sentinel. The job is simple, consisting of warning them if a predator is coming, so the mongooses can forage without worrying about security. It's a real win-win amid the competitive wildlife of the Kalahari. After a successful excursion finding food or a good deal with dwarf mongooses, the southern yellow-billed hornbill returns to the relative safety of the Kalahari treetops. This bird is known for having a powerful flight that alternates gliding with strong flaps. After a flight demonstration, the southern yellow-billed hornbill usually spends the night resting on a high branch of the plains trees. Far from most of the desert's ferocious predators, it will rest peacefully until the sun once again decides to heat the sands. As soon as the first rays light up the plain, the southern yellow-billed hornbill is among the first to wake, and with its whistles, growls, and clucks, it announces to its Kalahari neighbors the start of another hectic day of wildlife. On this day, the southern yellow-billed hornbill heads out once more in search of food, but this time it's not for itself. Something peculiar about this species is that during courtship, the male hornbill brings food to the female for about a month. In this period, both birds undertake the task of building what will be the family home, using leaves, bark, and other plant materials. Generally, the female will spend the entire incubation period literally sealed in with the eggs, while the male southern yellow-billed hornbill must assume the role of provider, venturing out each day to gather food for the mother and, when the time comes, for the young hatchlings. Undoubtedly, choosing to start a family in a place as inhospitable as the Kalahari is truly difficult, but the southern yellow-billed hornbill will do whatever it can to give its chicks a decent life, at least until they're old enough to fend for themselves. At the same time, the southern yellow-billed hornbill uses the few trees of the plain as shelter for its new family. Not far away, another species uses them as a food source. It weighs over 10 tons and makes the massive wildebeest look like a small mammal. It's the largest land animal on Earth, the African savanna elephant. The African elephant is an imposing creature that reminds us the Kalahari does not set size limits for its inhabitants. With intimidating tusks of up to 50 kilograms in males and a very functional trunk, there are perhaps only a few places on our planet with the required majesty to house this species, and the Kalahari is one of them. But being about 30 times bigger than a lion does not guarantee a peaceful life devouring leaves across the plains. Elephants face perhaps even greater challenges than species like the tiny meerkat. Of course, while they needn't worry about a martial eagle grabbing them in its talons and carrying them away to be eaten, Life in the Kalahari poses particular difficulties for these giants. For starters, when you're an elephant weighing over 6,500 kilograms, you have a huge stomach to fill, and not even the relatively abundant vegetation of a rainy day in the Kalahari can support that demand. An adult African savanna elephant must eat roughly 200 kilograms of food daily. Between seeking leaves, grasses, roots, tree bark, and fruits, elephants invest up to 18 hours a day roaming the plain, inspecting trees and poking through the undergrowth to snack on anything that adds to their seemingly endless menu. Altogether, each year, a single Kalahari elephant might walk up to 10,000 kilometers on its forced migration to satisfy its appetite. But since walking for long hours under the relentless Kalahari sun is not particularly refreshing, elephants also face the difficult task of keeping their gigantic bodies hydrated. In a plain plagued by drought, this can be an even tougher problem to solve than finding lush trees to devour. Most African savanna elephants address this at least temporarily with the flooding of the Okavango River, which tends to draw a large concentration of Kalahari elephants, as well as other species, in a spectacle like no other. When after walking for days, elephants find a source of refreshing water, they immediately lower their trunks to it, and though it seems they're drinking with them, they're actually just sucking up water to then pour into their mouths. The trunk of an adult elephant can hold up to 3 liters of water. It is an excellent idea. One must make the most of the water while it's there. Although at the few seasonal wetlands created by the rains, most animal species must always be on the alert for predators, the elephant's imposing dimensions let it relax a bit and enjoy the moment. Even the kings of the jungle generally hold a great respect for how challenging it is to hunt an animal of such enormity. However, when prey is scarce in the Kalahari and the lion's appetite takes over, some prides focus on hunting the largest land animal on Earth, resulting in a clash of titans on the plain. On the other hand, not even the harshest famine makes lions lose their senses, as they usually only set their sights on sick members of the herd and the youngest ones. The latter can be an easier catch and still a good food source, since they can weigh up to 120 kilograms within a few days of birth. But tangling with a baby elephant is no good idea. Even if lions succeed in the hunt, the mother won't be too pleased about having her calf taken, the one she carried in her womb for 22 months. Likewise, for a pride of lions, challenging a healthy, strong elephant can end with 2-meter tusks gravely injuring many pride members, which seems like a fair prize for letting greed lead them to go after such a colossal meal. On the other hand, if elephants feel threatened and see fleeing as their best option, stampedes break out. It's both impressive and terrifying to watch dozens of giants running in panic, crushing everything in their path. At that point, the plain rumbles, and it almost seems too small to contain them. Unfortunately, many times stampedes do not originate from the hectic wildlife of the Kalahari, but from the largest elephant predator on Earth, humans. Driven mostly by the valuable ivory in their tusks, poaching has plagued Kalahari elephants for decades. Their colossal size also made them a target for nearby populations seeking an almost endless source of meat, reducing their presence in many areas. But the presence of greedy illegal hunters is not the only threat facing African elephants in the Kalahari. For a species heavily dependent on water, the droughts that have afflicted the plain in recent years pose a major problem. While the Kalahari is inherently a place where rain is a rare blessing from the sky, climate change has caused these occurrences to be increasingly sporadic. Thus, the seasonal wetlands that once eased elephants' thirst on their way to the Okavango River are now more scarce, and often the weakest in the group don't survive the tireless journey. As is the case with African elephants, many other species are affected by rising temperatures in the Kalahari. The southern yellow-billed hornbill is one of these, experiencing increasingly challenging conditions for breeding. When average temperatures during its mating season exceed 35.7 degrees Celsius, breeding attempts usually fail, preventing this bird from bringing new offspring into the desert. At the current rate, by 2027, the plain would become completely infertile for this species, and their popular curved yellow bills would begin to disappear. Climate change and the influence of human activities in the Kalahari have not spared any rung of the food chain. Both large predators and herbivores are equally affected by the ecosystem's transformation. For instance, since species like wildebeests and zebras have less access to water, their herds inevitably shrink. In turn, this results in fewer prey for hungry carnivores, such as cheetahs, lions, jackals, honey badgers, or vultures, which will have to fight more and more often for whatever remains in the desert. Similarly to the gigantic African elephant tusks, the king of the Kalahari is also a target for poachers due to the commercialization of its bones, claws, skins, and even meat. Moreover, with the loss of habitat, lions are often forced to move to other regions of the Kalahari, where human encounters are more frequent and usually result in locals chasing away or killing the feline. The same story applies to cheetahs, which also face the threat of the illegal wildlife trade, causing hundreds of cubs to be taken from their mothers and sold worldwide as pets. But not all news is bad for the Kalahari's wild inhabitants. Some conservation awareness efforts in this ecosystem have succeeded in establishing various wildlife reserves. One of them, considered the second largest wildlife reserve in the world, is the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, spanning more than 52,800 square kilometers and covering up to 10% of Botswana's territory. Other Kalahari conservation sanctuaries include the Kalahari Transfrontier Park and the Kutsi Game Reserve. In these areas, hunting is controlled, and measures are taken to protect both animal and plant species. The truth is that, despite being heavily threatened in their daily lives, Kalahari wildlife species demonstrate their determination to survive and adapt to the difficult conditions. With real changes that help halt the impacts of global warming on this rich ecosystem and other human practices such as poaching, it's certain that Kalahari wildlife will continue to thrive and dominate this mystical place of endless plains and infinite sand dunes. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more of the planet's bustling wildlife, remember you can give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, to help preserve the Kalahari ecosystem, you can share this video with your friends so they can learn about the animal kingdom stories in this corner of southern Africa. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the Kalahari. Until the next adventure.